Let's get to work. That is the message from Oklahoma U.S. Senator James Lankford after Donald Trump was declared president-elect. Senator Lankford joins us live now as we look ahead to what's next. Senator Lankford, we want to say good morning to you and thank you so much for coming in. I just want to get first here your initial reaction and thoughts here following the results that came in earlier this morning.
Everyone knew it was going to be close, but we also thought it would take several days to get the election results because it would be so close. It proved not to be as close as what folks thought. Obviously, it's still very close. The nation's still very closely divided. It's almost exactly 50-50 with President Trump winning the majority of both the popular vote and obviously the Electoral College vote. But it's nice to have the decision done. Americans know what the decision is. Now let's get to work.
Yeah, so what are the top priorities that we're looking at here as Trump takes office for a second time?
So as soon as he steps into office, it'll take about 2 months to be able to just get all the cabinet officials in place. And that'll be something that's significant for the Senate. Obviously, the Senate is now Republican as well. That was a shift from last night. So there'll be a lot of push to get all the cabinet officials through, all the different folks. There's 1,200 people have to go through the nomination process. That's a lot. And then we'll go immediately into tax policy. Next year, our tax bill expires in December of 2025. So that means every single every single Oklahoman's tax rates will go up. Small businesses' tax rates increase about 20%. If we don't act on this, then there'll be a significant change for a lot of people's income and a crash to our economy. So that'll be a major part of next year as well.
Okay, and now I know that immigration has been a big topic, a big key issue for both campaigns here. I want to ask you, earlier this year, you were pushing your bipartisan immigration bill. You faced some backlash. It was not passed by the Senate. Are you planning to reintroduce that bill?
Yeah, there'll be aspects of it that'll be needed. There were two parts of that bill that when it came out, one was to push President Biden to be able to enforce the law. So we're holding funding from him until he actually enforced the law that he already had. That part's not going to be needed anymore. Obviously, President Trump's going to enforce the law as he did before, quite frankly, as President Obama did before him even. So I'm not worried about that part of it, but there is a change that's needed on the asylum issue. Right now, if you request asylum, it could be up to 8 years before you actually get that hearing and you're in the country during that time period. We've got to be able to change that to where they get a rapid hearing, they get a rapid decision. Only 3% of the people that ask for asylum actually qualify. That means 97% of the people don't. They're gaming the system. That's one of the aspects that no matter who is president, we've got to fix. That's one of the things my bill was trying to fix as well. So that's still sitting out there. So part of it's not going to be needed. We don't have to push the president to enforce. This president's going to enforce the law, but we do still need to fix that loophole in the law that exists.
Okay, and you mentioned there Republicans taking control of the Senate. Those were some of the results here from overnight. What priorities are you going to be taking to Congress that align with Oklahoma's needs? You talk about taxes. What else are we looking at?
Yeah, significant. Obviously, the immigration piece, tax piece. There's a lot of things that we've got to be able to work on the ag portion. We still don't have a farm bill. That's very significant to be able to get done. Pharmaceutical is an issue that I've worked on for years. We've got it through the committee in a bipartisan basis, but Schumer hasn't brought it to the floor, and we got to be able to get that done. That deals with pharmacy benefit managers to bring down the cost of all pharmaceuticals. That's a piece that needs to be able to get done. So I'm going to continue to push this. I'm actually running for one of the leadership positions in the U.S. Senate. That election will be next Wednesday. That gives an Oklahoma voice sitting at the leadership table in the Senate if I'm able to win that race and to be able to help push what we believe and what we think are the priorities: debt, deficit, managing Social Security, balancing that out, make sure we're stabilizing it, dealing with the immigration issues and such.
Now, this election and over the last few years, there are concerns about there being deep division in our country. What is your message of unity to voters and Oklahomans?
Yeah, I constantly say when we have differences of opinion, okay, we're Americans. We have differences of opinion. Let's sit down like grown-ups. Let's actually work out our differences here. Let's find the areas where we have common ground and let's keep moving on this. That's what elections are all about, when Americans get a chance to be able to speak out, who's going to be the first voice. But when you're in the United States Senate, you still have to have 60 people to pass legislation. So even if we have 52, 53, 54 senators that are Republicans, we don't have 60 to be able to move anything we want. We still have to sit down with people we disagree with, work out our differences to be able to get that resolved. That's the American system. So I'm a Christian personally. I believe other people, no matter who they are creating the image of God and they have value and worth. I should treat them with respect even when we disagree, but we do need to actually solve problems.
Okay, and a little bit more on that here. What is your message to voters who didn't vote for President Trump as we look ahead to the next 4 years.
What was interesting was President Trump started his speech last night very, very early this morning, I guess I should say, by saying, okay, it's time to be able to bring the country together. We've got to be able to actually do things. And we talked about immigration. He talked about not only enforcing the border, but he talked about more legal immigration, which I think there would have been some people, I wasn't surprised, but I think some people would have been surprised by that comment. He immediately was putting the olive leaf out to say, let's find ways to be able to work together, and let's do that. Let's bring the country together. That was a good first step for him to be able to step out and do that. It's good for the entire country to say, we have differences. Everybody had different yard signs in their yard for the past several weeks. Okay, we disagree on stuff. Now let's find areas where we can work together.
Okay, U.S. Senator James Lankford, we appreciate your time. Thank you for coming in and keep us updated on that election. I'm sure we'll keep an eye on that for you next week. Thank you.
Thanks.